1. The meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the January 22nd, 2026 meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission's Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Lauren Woodard, and I'm the chair of this committee. At this time, I'll ask staff to call our roll.
Jordan Ryland.
Here.
Lauren Woodard.
Here.
Melissa Todd.
Here.
Rob Allen.
Here.
And our fifth, John Scheimer, is excused. We are expecting one more member likely in the next few minutes.
All right. It does appear that we have, with our fifth, we'll have the presence of a quorum.
We already have quorum.
We already have a quorum.
Yep.
Prior to the beginning of this meeting, I'll ask that if you plan to speak, that you sign into our attendance roster, and then we'll swear you in when you come up to the podium. The Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and the city's Unified Development Ordinance. We're authorized to hear requests for Certificate of Appropriateness within historic overlay districts and Raleigh historic landmark properties. I'll have my fellow commission members introduce themselves, beginning with Jordan, and we'll come in this direction.
I'm Jordan Ryland. I'm a local architect and resident of Raleigh for 15 years.
I'm Lauren Woodard. I'm also an architect here in Raleigh, and I've been a resident of Raleigh for about 12 years.
My name is Melissa Todd. I'm a licensed architect, and I live in the Boylan Heights Historic Overlay District.
Good evening. I'm Rob Allen. I'm an architect. I'm a Raleigh native and also a resident of the Boylan Heights Historic Overlay District.
I'd like to also call on our staff to introduce themselves, starting with you, Colette.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Colette Canane. I am a senior preservation planner here at the City of Raleigh. I've been here for 8 years, and I have a master's degree in historic preservation.
And I'm Erin Morton-Pugh, also senior preservation planner here for about 6 years, and I also have a master's in historic preservation.
I'd like to recognize our attorney.
I'm Pat Jones. I'm counsel to the committee.
All right. With that, our first order of business is approval of today's agenda as posted. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Hearing no objections, the motion carries unanimously. Next, we have last month's minutes and the staff reports, which were made available online. Looking at the minutes from December 11th, 2025 Certificate of Appropriateness Committee meeting, what motion to waive the reading of the minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Hearing no objections, the motion carries unanimously. For corrections and additions, I actually do have a small correction to that. Item A.2, approval of the minutes, says that Commissioner Woodard both motioned and seconded, but I believe it was actually Commissioner Ryland that motioned that. So just a friendly amendment to that. Motion to adopt the minutes with friendly amendment.
Move to approve as amended.
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, so now we can move on to the evidentiary hearing. Before we begin the evidentiary hearing, we'll outline the process for quasi-judicial decisions. In hearing cases, the committee conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing. That means that it's like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures, and rules concerning how this committee must make its decisions. These rules are different from other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases, which are legislative in nature. This committee's decisions are constrained by the standard of review set forth in state law and the UDO and the facts presented at the hearing. The committee hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in the state law and the city's ordinance. The committee must base its decisions on competent, material, and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you will be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and legal standard, avoiding personal preference or opinion. This meeting is open to the public. Participation is limited. Everyone is welcome to watch. Parties have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standard. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, this committee needs to hear the opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and traffic safety. We'll now begin the evidentiary hearing with case number COA Let me pull this down. COA 0139, 2025, 324 Cutler Street. Well, now welcome staff for their presentation, but before we do, I'll swear staff in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth?
I do.
I do.
Please proceed.
I'm going to take a quick detour before
Sure.
we get started because I will not remember to just note that we had 10 minor works approved between November 25th and January 6th, and those applications can be viewed on the city's website.
Thank you for that, Colette.
I'll also note we're having remote mouse problems, so we will be jumping back and forth to the computer.
All right. And with that, please proceed with your presentation.
Sure. So the first case is 324 Cutler Street that is located in the Boylan Heights Historic District. You can see the property here is located at the corner of Cutler and McCullough. The request is to install lattice above the front porch railing, alter the driveway, remove existing fence, construct a 6-foot rear fence, and alter rear deck color. This is a view of the property from Cutler Street. And this is a view of the front porch area where the proposed lattice is to be installed. The view of the property from McCullough. And it is a very long property, so I have a few photos to get you the full picture here. This is just beyond that dumpster that you saw. And then showing the existing garage at the rear of the property. And this is a view from behind that garage looking towards the existing rear deck. An abbreviated summary of staff concerns was the fence height along the side street and additional details that are typically provided as conditions.
All right. Thank you, Colette. I'll now call on the applicant for their presentation or information they'd like to provide. The applicant or representative come to the podium. Hi. Before you begin, please state for the record your name, address, in relation to the case.
Michael Yacht, attorney for the LLC that owns the property.
Okay.
And you need my address?
Yes.
2601 Oberlin Road, Suite 100, Raleigh 27608.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Before you start, I'll swear you in.
Okay.
Do you swear to affirm? Oh, sorry, attorney. Sorry, today's my first day as chair, so.
You're doing great.
You're doing great.
I would perhaps ask
I can still
if
swear.
Mr. Wicker intends to speak, and then you can swear him in.
Perfect.
Also.
Do you intend to speak?
No,
Okay,
I just heard I need to be here so he can speak, the sole member and manager of the LLC.
gotcha.
Okay.
So you should swear him in.
I'll swear you in, or both in. If you,
So I'm Tim Wicker. I'm the owner of the LLC, and
Sure.
I'm doing the work.
perfect. Can you give us your address as well?
What's that?
Is this your address as well?
It is not my home address yet.
Okay,
I'm at 308 Dunwoody Drive, Raleigh, North Carolina.
perfect. Thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and swear you in then. Do you swear to or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you very much. You may proceed with any comments or presentations you have.
To be honest, I don't have a lot of comments. I think what I have requested hopefully is reasonable. I think it's going to help this house look a lot better in the neighborhood. I think it is unique with the commercial property behind me. You know, as I am outside, I'm literally watching people type on their computers all day long. I mean, there's giant windows, so I think the 6-foot fence is something that I do see in the neighborhood in other homes, and I think it'll provide a nice little buffer between me and the commercial property. The garage that is existing, I'm not sure. It looks like a garage. It smells like a garage. It has a garage door. None of my vehicles can fit in that garage. It actually is probably an old carriage house or something that I think about a decade ago, according to the previous owner, they did come and try to make it bigger or put a real garage there. And of course, that didn't get approved, and I get it. So they kind of leaned up what they had. The vehicles I own are too tall, and even a 4-door sedan is too long. It does not fit in there. So given that the property across the street behind us in this picture is still a quadruplex, parking can be a little bit of a problem, so I'm really hoping to get some off-street parking.
All right. Let's see. Is that all we have?
That's all I got.
All right,
Unless
perfect.
you have questions for me.
Let's see. Any questions from commission?
Just one. I live right around the corner, so want to compliment all the work that's been done. This is a beautiful house and has some really, special features, especially the windows have a very unique pattern. So
I'm excited.
like seeing all the work that's been done so far. My question is, and you were hinting at it just then, and I do remember when they straightened out the existing garage because it did have a lean to it. I feel like staff may know, but I feel like there was a COA maybe associated with that. This would have been like over 10 years ago, but
No, I've Googled, the house, or
Yeah.
the COA does come up from back then and the previous pictures of it kind of. And I think at the end of the day, even if it was approved here, it wouldn't have been approved by the city of Raleigh because the entire garage is an inch from the property line. So I think to leave it the way it is was really the only option.
yeah, it was sensitively worked on, so I appreciate that. My question is about the parking strips. They're going to align with the existing curb cut along McCulloch, right? Okay. And then your application also had an image in the back. I believe it's the back of your property of a red painted lattice beneath some steps. And I wasn't sure the context for that particular image, if we were supposed to pay attention to the color or the
So you
lattice.
can see in this picture, just barely is in the shade. You got this, nice yellow and with white trim, and you had this barn red deck
Yeah.
and lattice. I don't find that attractive. So I just wanted to come in and do the lattice, and really what you see from the street, paint it to match that trim color.
Got it. Okay.
That's really it.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
All right. Anybody else?
Hi. So there's a fence on, let's call it 3 sides of the property. Are you replacing it on all 3 sides or just the 2 that don't have an adjoining fence? Is that right?
I was not going to mess with the fence between my house and the neighbor's house.
Okay, but the one to the
It doesn't
alley-
really have a purpose because the home sits so high. It's not, unless we're both standing on the ground, it really doesn't have a purpose, so.
So the fence to the alley and the fence to McCulloch are both in your application? That's what
Yes.
you want to
Yes.
replace? Okay,
Just trying to create a little private area in the backyard.
sure thing.
All right. That's all our questions. Are there any members from the public? Oh, sorry, you can sit if that's it. Any members of the public for or against this application? Hearing none. Let's see. Hearing none, we'll close the evidentiary hearing and bring the matter to the table. Are there any discussions?
I don't think so. We had a COA hearing in this district a couple of months ago about the addition of parking strips that were actually cited in this application. I think it worked out there. There's an existing curb cut here, so I think it makes sense. The rest of the projects looks great. A lot of great restoration and sensitive renovation work's been happening. So I think everything seems compatible in the application.
Yeah, I agree. I think it looks like a good application. Feeling good? All right.
I'd like to move to approve COA-0139-2025 based on the potential, or based on these conditions, that the details and specifications for the following be provided to and approved by staff prior to installation or construction. A final lattice design if an opening is included.
All right. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, the committee's written decision will be adopted with the minutes of this meeting at next month's COA. Applicant and other parties will receive written notice following the adoption of decision. All right. With that, we'll move on to the next case, which is case number COA 0154 2025 528 North Person Street. And we'll hear from staff.
52, 200 Newbern Place is next.
I rolled right. COA 0152 2025 200 Newbern Place. Thank you, Clyde.
Yes, no problem.
All right, thank you very much.
This application is in the Capitol Square Historic District. The nature of the request is to construct a rear brick and wood fence and replace driveway. And you can see in this map here, the property is on the corner of Newbern Place and South Blunt Street. So this is a view of the property from Newbern Place. The majority of the proposed work is occurring at the rear of the property, so this is just for your information. Again, a view of the front. You can see a little glimpse of the rear property at the back there. A view from South Blunt, and a full view of the existing side along South Blunt Street. This is a view at the end of the existing driveway looking towards the house. The existing driveway and rear yard area. This is a better view from across the street to give you the full picture of the existing retaining wall that runs alongside the south property line. And again, from the adjacent property looking into the rear yard area. The summary of staff concerns are materials and details that are typically provided as conditions.
All right. If the applicant's present, will they please come forward and for any information or presentation? No applicant? All right. So
this is a question for our council. There are members of the public here to speak on this application. I don't know if we can continue with that in the absence of the applicant or if the request should be deferred.
A question for staff. Was the applicant asked to attend
Yes.
with counsel?
Yes.
So that's of record now. The applicant failed to do that. You can still proceed. There's no applicant presentation, so you rely upon the materials that have been submitted. And it's certainly acceptable to proceed if you like and to welcome appearances by the public that wish to speak.
it's a question for the committee. Do we feel like we have enough to move forward?
I do. I mean, it's unfortunate the applicant's not here, but I think, people have taken their time to be here to speak on the case, so we could at least hear their statements and, decide from there. It doesn't mean approval or denial. There's also deferral. So,
correct.
We could reach a decision, I think, one of those three options. So
Sure.
I think it would be fair to proceed, especially just to be respectful of the public opinion.
I agree. With that, I think we can proceed. The next item would be to hear from the public. So if there are any members of the public for or against this application, let's start with for application if there are. Seeing none. Those who'd like to speak in opposition to the application? And if you haven't already signed in, please do.
Did you hear that?
Your photos are already uploaded, so you just scroll or use the arrows, it'll get to them. Okay, all right.
All right. Ayes.
All right. Hey,
If you'd
good
state for the
evening.
record
I'm
your
Richard
name.
Bolton. I'm with Ragsdale Liggett. I represent Danner LLC
Okay.
and Bretsch LLC. Danner owns 214 Newbern Place, which is 2 doors down, 2 houses down. Brecht owns the house behind this and owns that retaining wall that you're looking at. And this is Erin Kapp. She's the vice president of both those entities. So she's going to speak to you about this proposed fence and its lack of congruity with what's around and all that.
Okay. Welcome. All right, before you speak, let me swear you in.
Sure.
Do you swear to affirm that the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
All right, wonderful. All right. I'm going to attempt to not insert my opinion on the application. We appreciate the opportunity to provide some information that perhaps wasn't considered by the staff's review for this application. We feel confident that this level of detail was likely not available or contemplated when the COA was initially approved back in 2006, which also included, in addition to a fence, I think covering the back porch area. From what I understand, it looks like maybe they did a portion of the work but didn't follow through with all of the work. Colette, is that, yeah, okay. The pending COA related to 200 Newbern Place presents an interesting situation with us as an adjacent homeowner, the Horton Beckham Brecht house, which is the 11 South Blunt Street house. Let me see if, Colette, I don't know if I sent you a picture. It's essentially to the right side of the retaining wall on the other side of this entrance to the parking lot. We own that property under an LLC, as well as 214 Newbern Place, better known as the Montgomery House, seen in the picture at the top of the parking lot. It's the greenhouse. The property at 11 South Blunt Street is comprised of an Eastlake-style house officially landmarked in May of 2016, and also includes a 25-space surface parking lot that you can see in the image here. The north side of the parking lot in the rear, I'm not even going to call it a backyard, the rear of 200 Newbern Place are separated by a 3.5-foot retaining wall that dates back approximately 75 years and predates the relocation of all of the other homes that you see in the picture here in the Capitol Square Historic Overlay District. The property line for 200 Newbern Place, you can kind of see the stakes in this picture. Here's a better view of the stakes in the yard. Are so close to the retaining wall, as you can see in the picture. It is relevant to note that the property is primarily used for social events. This is, from what I understand, like a secret fraternity house. It has been that way for the past 15 years. It really hasn't been treated with the respect that the property of this significance commands. All of the other homeowners and tenants of these residences in this historic overlay district are clustered together on Newbern Place and are occupied by professional businesses, including an investment advisor and a law clinic operated by Campbell University. Campbell University is actually the tenant of 11 South Blunt Street, the Eastlake style home. I think, without saying that we share an opinion, there is an opinion that we don't want to see the back of their house in the condition that they leave it. They're constantly doing things on the weekend, leaving the remnants of it out there for the rest of us to enjoy Monday through Friday, including solo cups and big bags of trash can. If you actually look in the application that they submitted, this page, it says G5 on it, you can actually see the piles of trash bags that they leave for like weeks at a time. I think it isn't congruent with the neighborhood standards, and approving a fence in the design and the height that they are requesting is essentially okaying a dumpster area in the back of their house. Our feedback has been shared with the board chairman, who is not here tonight, as well as the architect that submitted the application in early December. However, we want to briefly summarize why we think it's not congruous with the neighborhood. The first is the lack of conformity with the design standards for the historic overlay district. The height of the fence. Ground level
of the rear of 200 Newbern Place sits at the top of our 3.5-foot retaining wall. That 3.5-foot retaining wall, that's 3.5 feet higher than the south end of Blunt Street. I don't know, Colette, if I can go back. Okay, here you go. It's 3.5 feet higher in front of and in the parking lot of 11 South Blunt Street. The total distance from the base of their back porch to the retaining wall is approximately 20 feet. The applicant wants to construct a fence that would be 72 inches high, comprised of 42 inches of tightly spaced wood boards on the bottom separated by brick posts, and another 30 inches above that of busy lattice, which I can only discern looks like the side detailing of their back porch area, along with an 8-foot by 8-foot trash receptacle area at the entrance of their driveway. In the staff comments under the congruity analysis, bullet point number 5, the staff notes that the applicant is attempting to seek approval for a fence that isn't in line with the design guidelines. A fence that is 6 feet tall, no matter the variation in opacity between the upper portion and the lower portion, is incongruous with the neighborhood standards and is going to just be under 10 feet tall if you're standing in that parking lot. The retaining wall at 11 South Blunt actually predates the historic residence that were moved there in the early 1980s. The staff notes in bullet number 7 of that congruity analysis that due to the primary institutional nature of the district, historic fences and site walls are rare. Allowing installation of a fence of this height and in this location would be incongruous with the character of the overlay district and hide the other residential landmarks. The Horton Beckham Brush House, the White Holman House, and the Montgomery House. If the staff asserts in the congruity analysis that the applicant's property is significant in contributing, I think we are really wondering why it would be appropriate to wall it off. The staff also notes under this same bullet that the majority of the residential character buildings included in the district are located on or near Newbern Place. Having one of those 4 properties with a large fence enclosing a roughly 20-foot deep rear property would be out of character with the other properties. I think we would also argue that the inclusion in this application of the 6-foot fence on the property they are referencing as an example is the Haywood House, is one, not facing other residences. The 6-foot fence that they included in the application is actually on Edenton Street, facing the Bar Association. It is not in direct sight of any other residences, and it's not impeding any other views. Also, it's tying into the brick wall that encloses the condominium complex that sits at the very, very end of Newbern Place and was constructed much later than the date that these houses were moved. So therefore, we don't believe that that is a relevant example of another 6-foot fence in our overlay district. The fence, as noted in the staff comments, was proposed following the building of, like I mentioned, a new condo complex at the end of the cul-de-sac. It should be noted also, and they did not submit this in the application, but the other 3 sides of the Haywood House fence are short and picketed and no taller than 42 inches. The second area of concern that we wanted to address is the visibility and the safety. I would assert that this really isn't an opinion, it's a fact. Building any fence will block significantly the views of the Horton Beckham Brush House. Blunt Street is one way. It's a major thoroughfare, I would argue, through downtown Raleigh. There's no way with a fence that one could even see the historic structures like the Montgomery House or the White Holman House if they are walling off with effectively a 10-foot high fence the back of their property. Blunt Street is a busy thoroughfare. Like I mentioned, it is already really difficult to exit that parking lot with the existing trees, the mature trees, the pedestrian walking spaces, the parallel parking that happens and is permitted along the road. Adding a fence with a gate that opens outwardly onto Blunt Street, which is also part of the application, is also going to create a hazardous situation for those that park in that parking lot. The distance from the front bumper of my SUV to the back of the driver's seat is 10 feet. There's no way to see around a structure that extends 2 feet into the line of sight. The proposed location of the trash enclosure would only add to the visibility issues that I already mentioned. And then thirdly, I think I would just propose that that wall is of particular concern to us. It is a very unique situation in that it's our wall and it's holding up the rear of their property. I do think they share, a collective need for the wall, but I don't know up until this point that they have demonstrated to us the desire to make sure that the integrity of the wall is not damaged by putting a structure of this size and magnitude in that space. It is such a tight space anyways. And I also would mention, they're not here tonight, but back in the summer of 2023, they installed a fence in that backyard that was over 6 feet high, and they poured the footings directly behind our wall and tied the fence posts to the railing that sits on top of the wall. I brought that to Colette's attention, and it was subsequently removed by the owner. In terms of the integrity of the structure of the wall is 75 years old at least. We've asked them to get an engineer out there to look at the wall and to discern potentially an appropriate distance to pour footings. They had an engineer come out, and communication has ceased with us regarding that. I think there's also a concern in terms of the load zone of the wall and the force the load zone of the fence and the force it might exert on the wall, and who would be responsible for the damages that causes. I think in the application, the rendering by the architect shows the footings basically abutted against our wall. And when I brought that to his attention, he of course asserted that they were going to do some due diligence, and I would hope that the committee would not move forward with such a request without much more information from the applicant with regard to this. There are some trees and some volunteer shrubs that are running along the retaining wall. I'm not certain, they've asked that those be removed as part of this request. I'm not certain, and even going out there today, that one of the trees is on their property. It may be on ours. And so I think there would have to be some additional looking by someone to do a survey to actually determine whether or not that tree's on their property or ours. There would also be, obviously, if and I don't really know what would happen if it was partly on their property, partly on ours, but obviously there's a critical root structure to that tree, and they would not be able to pour any footings anywhere near the tree if indeed the tree was on the property of 11 South Blunt Street. After reviewing the congruity analysis and understanding the visibility and safety risk and the concerns of the adjacent homeowners, like I said, I think we would expect a detailed analysis to be performed in partnership with us to make sure that it is not endangering our wall, but I also would urge the committee to reject the request based on the incongruity with the rest of the neighborhood. There's no precedent for a fence that tall. And really, the draw to secure the property from unhoused individuals in downtown Raleigh is, I think, trying to pull on the heartstrings of the committee. This is something we all sign up for when you own a downtown property close to the bus station. There are intermittent issues, but they're never there. So the only information they're going on is information I've shared with them in terms of individuals. They're not there maybe a weekend a month. So it's hard to kind of understand why they want to spend so much money on a fence to basically create this barricade over there when this is a significant property in the overlay district to us, rather than kind of addressing some of the other rudimentary issues with the property management that exist that, I've brought up to Colette over the years, brought to their attention on many of occasions. We've had our tenants at the law school comment on the upkeep of the property. It's really embarrassing sometimes. So we hope that the committee takes all of those factors into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's see, hearing that, are there any other folks from the public who would wish to speak? No. All right, hearing none, I'll move the case to the table for deliberation. I know it's difficult without the applicant here. I alone have a few questions I would like to ask the applicant, so it is difficult. I would say from my seat, I do think that the additional height of the wall below the already tall 6-foot fence is a difficult, pardon the pun, hurdle to get over. Yeah. Even with, I think, in other typical applications of rear yards, having a broken down amount of opacity. And then on top of that, I think the comments do bring up, while we can't really speak to use as much, the presence of this kind of massy wall in this area, I think, is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the graphics in for me, the graphics in the application, this was on our agenda last month, and similar outcome happened, I believe, where the applicant was not here. So we'd not hear the case. It got moved to this month's agenda, which is why it's still on the new business. But one of my questions that I had from even last month was, I think the graphic representation varies a little bit on, throughout the application. Sometimes the wood portion is quite a bit lower than the brick pilasters. Other times, like some of the examples show it being like the elevation shows it in line, and then obviously, as was just discussed or presented to us, there's portions that are solid versus some that has the lattice, and I think we need some clarification on that. I do think the public comment was interesting to hear, and added a unique perspective. So I think where I stand is, I think the appropriate action would probably be a deferral, because I don't think we have enough. I don't feel we have enough information to approve it, even with conditions. I think denial would be harsh, because I think it's possible to have a fence here, and deferral would allow a revision. So I think there's a path forward, but I don't know that we have enough information yet to approve what's been proposed.
Yeah. Any other comments from the committee?
question I would have for staff is, without the applicant here, usually when we suggest a deferral, there's a date that we're suggesting, and it's hard to say next month because I'm sure the deadline is quickly approaching for any revisions to be submitted to staff. So, I mean, if we needed to pick a date, I would pick the March date at the earliest, but I don't know if we can forego suggesting a date. Is it?
So the very next meeting is February 26th. Our current staff deadline for receiving new materials to be included in a staff report is January 30th. There is the possibility that they could choose to provide new materials at the meeting that are not reflected in the staff report, but that would be your purview as to, whether you needed more time to consider those items. So I think choosing a date is best. It's up to you whether you would like to choose February 26th or March 26th.
And in weighing that decision, I'd like to ask Pat, our counsel, the staff report indicates that the 90-day timeline to make a decision is February 10th. That is simply because we haven't had the opportunity to hear the application with the applicant to date. Would this deferral be, can you provide some information on when an automatic approval might be granted, depending on when the committee takes action?
I'm concerned. This looks like it's going to time out, right? That's our deadline, the February 10th date.
If they previously requested deferral, as they did at the previous meeting,
Right.
is that not a consent to expand that deadline?
I view it as not. There would need to be a specific request for deferral that manages this deadline, and we don't have that.
So with that in mind, we should review we should make a decision on the case today then, or
Yes,
we
it
won't
should
be
be an
able to.
approval or denial then, and so that it can fit in this window.
Is voting to defer not considered an action?
In my view, it's not. It's not an appropriate action. I'll put it that way. Should you choose to act, and should you choose a denial, that would not prevent the applicant from coming back in with an application that is different. They can't come back in with the same application because res judicata applies. That means it's been decided.
So
So we'd reject that.
potential further complication, this application was submitted before January 1st, which is when our new UDO changes went into effect, that it is now 180 days. Because it was submitted before the new UDO went into effect, are we still relying on that 90?
It's a question of permit choice,
Yes.
right? Under
Yeah.
North Carolina law. We don't have an applicant here that's making a choice to apply the old rules, even though the applicant would have a right to apply the old rules. The applicant is absent. So we have to apply the new rule.
So that would be 180 days deadline.
To make to take action.
What would the new deadline with 180 days be?
I can't do that level of math
Okay.
on the spot.
It would be May 11th.
Okay.
Based on the
We're well within the
completion
window.
date of November 12th.
Okay. So with that being our applicable code, I suppose we can move forward with a deferral in that case.
You can.
All
Yeah,
right.
now that we've worked through it, yes, you can.
Perfect. All right. I move that based on the evidence presented within the application and the staff report, that we defer this case. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the meeting will be deferred.
Is that automatically getting deferred to the next meeting, or do we get to select a date?
We need to select a date. I believe we were thinking the March date, correct?
I would say I would also think the March date to give time. But
Yes.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
I think based on the history of us seeing or not seeing the applicant, the March 26th date would be my recommendation.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, to give time. Can we, do we have the
Need
power
to-
to send them like something, a notice to appear or something?
We will inform them of the date. We can also provide them with the recording and minutes of the meeting so that they're aware of the discussion that took place.
Okay.
All right, sounds good. All right, moving right along. Move to our next application. I'll try to get this one right. COA 0154 2025, 528 North Person Street. Now, recognize staff for their presentation.
So as you just mentioned, this is case 154, 2025 for 528 North Person Street. It is in the Oakwood Historic District. As you can see in the map here, this is another corner property. We have a lot of those today. It is at the intersection of North Person and Pell Street. And the nature of the request is to construct a 2-story accessory structure, alter driveway, construct a 12 by 12 rear pergola, covered patio with outdoor kitchen, install an 8-foot fence, install 36-inch tall metal fence, and alter side yard landscaping. This is a view of the property from North Person Street, and a view from near the intersection with Pell Street. Nearly all of the proposed work is occurring in the rear yard and not on the existing historic house. This is a view of the existing rear yard. And again, the existing fence along Pell Street. This is a view from behind that fence, from the east property line looking towards the south. And a view looking from the middle of the rear yard to the east property line. An abbreviated summary of staff concerns is the proposed built area to open space. Having 2 structures on a property that appear as a primary structure, the proposed height, tree removal without replacement, patios with defined borders or a picture frame style, and materials and details that are typically provided as conditions.
All right, thank you very much. I'll now call on the applicant for their presentation or additional information.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bajana Etten. I'm the architect. The applicant could not be here. He's out of the country traveling. But, so, do I need to be sworn in?
Yes, before you start, I'll swear you in. Do you swear to affirm that the testimony you'll provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, perfect.
All right, so as I mentioned, my name is Bajana Etten. I'm the architect for this project. I'm here representing Alec and Kristen Jeffries, who are the owners of the existing property.
Ma'am, will you please, you can pull the mic down to your face. Thanks.
Yeah. We would like to address some of the comments that were made by the staff, hopefully clarifying and maybe helping answer some of your questions. And please feel free, obviously, after this to ask anything you would like. I am here also with Emily Kennedy, who is the landscape architect from Site Collaborative. And she can also help with some of the exterior site-related questions. So the proposed ADU, the way we approached it was to be designed with thought of how to best improve the pedestrian and neighborhood experience on Pell Street. Therefore, we were trying to be very sensitive in terms of the design and aesthetic of the proposed ADU. Currently, as you can see, the lot is empty in the rear. They used to have a small shed structure that we believe was removed prior to this client purchasing the site. There is a fence currently that's also dilapidated, and we would be removing this fence along the street. We would like to first start addressing the height concern that was posed to us. We are not proposing that the height of the ADU is any taller than the primary structure. It's actually shorter. It is a 2-story. The primary is 3 stories. The house in the rear on 522 North Person Street, it is also taller than the proposed ADU. The site is sloping down. We're placing the ADU somewhat in the middle, 20 feet away from the rear back of the property line where you have 306 Pell Street. So we're placing about 20 feet away from that. And that was also something that was discussed with the owner of 306, where they don't feel like there's another structure coming right up against their house, even though we can do 5 feet, I think, setback. Also trying to keep some of the trees that we could on the property. So that was the reason for moving it a little bit further up in the site. Another thing that came up was the design of the proposed ADU looks somewhat like maybe it's a primary structure. That was not the intent. The intent was always to make it look historically appropriate. It is new building, but we wanted to mimic the architecture in the neighborhood. The architecture is slightly varied, but the gable roof, the front porch, kind of making it not look, different. Also facing Pell Street instead of facing the rear of the existing main house. If we were to turn the ADU, you would have one large wall of the proposed accessory dwelling unit on the side of the sidewalk, walling off that property, and we think it detracts from the street, from how Pell Street is experienced. Whereas if we're facing it, it just feels a little bit more congruent to the other buildings on the site, on that street. So kind of hopefully, proportionally plays with the rest of the structure. And we did, as asked by the office, to give you a section of the street showing all the elevations and showing our ADU added on. And I don't know, can I skip forward? Can I do that, or I should not do that? Everybody has reviewed the drawing, so I don't have to go to the images. Okay, thank you. So again, we were trying to be as conscientious to the look of it, and the height is actually taken from the street to the peak of our proposed ADU is slightly shorter than 306, which is the next door neighbor. But because the way the street is sloping down, it starts appearing like it's almost the same height. The other part that I wanted to address is also the, so as we talked about subdividing, another comment was made by the staff about maybe subdividing the lot and making it a primary structure, and that was not something that was considered or even brought up to us at the beginning, but we don't want to subdivide. This is specifically meant to be an accessory dwelling unit. And another point is an example we gave at 425 North Bloodworth Street that has an accessory structure that's facing the street, and it's also on a corner lot. It's on Polk Street, and it is clearly also visible from Polk Street. It is a 2-story structure. It is set back from the front. We set back ours as far as we could, but we can't go too far. They have a bit more space, but it's the same kind of situation, just slightly set back further from Polk Street, whereas, which is a similar, smaller street, just like Pell Street. Pell Street is even more smaller, I think, in terms of how it looks. Anyway, these are some of my comments. If you guys have any questions or any comments or anything we can clarify.
Sure. Thank you so much. Hearing that, are there any questions from our committee for the applicant?
Sorry, I didn't catch if you mentioned this, but there are no replacement trees noted in the application. Has there been any consideration for replacement trees for the ones being removed?
May I defer that to Emily?
Yes. Hello.
Hi,
Let me swear you in. Before I do, can you state your name and your relationship to the project?
Emily Rothrock Kennedy. I'm the landscape architect.
Awesome. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Perfect. Go ahead.
So the trees have been highly discussed in this project. There's trees that are partially on the property, fully on the property, and a lot of volunteers. So in looking at what's going on here, there's definitely older, primary, mature trees. We are proposing to keep those. There's a lot of volunteer underneath, which are competing. And so in looking at this project, looking at canopies of trees coming across the street as well, we have not proposed replacements because the goal is to open up and give room for those primary trees to remain, to thrive, and expand their canopies as they need to and continue their lifespan. Adding more trees here, in my opinion, would create the same situation. This is not leafed out. The foliage here is not really that clear, but there's a lot of competition. And some of them are like invasive ligustrum underneath that have just matured or been chopped down and trunked out. So we would like to clean that up and give opportunity for those mature, nice pecan trees and really nice trees to continue their lives, provide shade.
Do you have any information from a certified arborist on the health of the trees, or if clearing out, say, what you're saying, the undergrowth would in fact improve the health of
There
these
has
larger
been
trees?
no arborist out to the site to do an evaluation. I walked to the site. I provided the plan as a landscape architect. There is one tree that is significantly leaning, and we felt that was not safe for that, so that is shown to be removed, but we have not had an arborist out.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, hi. The pergola, I guess to the left side, if you're looking at
Yes.
the street elevation of the house, are any of the examples that you provided, are they, I guess, street facing, so the official front yard of this house is, or the front of this house is Person Street, but the side yard is Pell Street. And so, especially on page, I guess, 15 of the PDF that you provided, you can really see how all the facades along Pell Street march, but I don't see the pergola in that drawing. But it seems to me that, that would appear to be kind of in the side yard of the ADU, even though I guess in reality it's in the rear yard of the main house. So with its relationship to the ADU, do you have are any of the pergola examples that you provided sort of in the side yard of any of those structures that they are adjacent to? Like, do they have that same relation to the street as the pergola that you're proposing?
Yes, I believe we had several pergola examples, and they were kind of in the back side specifically.
I'd have
Was
to look
that
at-
was the ones that.
Yeah, I'd have to look at a map to confirm if it's technically a side yard or a front yard based on how Raleigh does that. But the 415 Elm Street, that's a photo from the public street. It's not at the front of the home. That's off to the side. And then there's a smaller structure on 405 East Jones Street. That's more, it's not as large, it's a larger arbor, but that's off to the side as well. And you can see the front of the structure there. So I don't know how to technically answer if it's really a front or side, but or rear. But in the same vicinity and orientation of the home, yes.
I think the mic got you, but next time, if you would step up to the podium, sometimes these mics aren't sensitive enough. Thank you
Just for the recording.
for our recording. Mhm.
So, sorry about that. The example for 415 Elm Street is a side pergola. I'm not 100% sure if that's technically a rear or side or yard, but it is off to the side of the structure and from the public right-of-way view. And then the 405 East Jones Street, that is a arbor, a larger arbor, and that's off to the side from the main structure as well, visible from the public street.
Okay. Another question I have is sort of about that same street elevation. I believe you said in your presentation that the proposed structure is shorter than the primary structure and shorter than the structure, I guess, to the rear, 306 Pell Street. Do you have a drawing that shows that?
So we can't, so for me to measure every single house, that's like a thing I cannot personally do.
Sure.
We went off the elevations that actually the owner of 306 provided for us. And when I measured hers from the street, it was literally a foot. Ours was a foot shorter.
Right.
But visually, because of the way the slope of the street is, it doesn't look like it, but it is shorter.
Right.
Because her house is up a few steps and then a few more steps, and then, and ours is like at ground level.
Right.
So that kind of what gives it that. But yeah, apologies. I did not put the dimensions for the full height because I didn't want to assume heights.
Got it.
Just based on the information I was provided just for that property. I don't know anybody else's.
Right.
But I can provide that if needed by the staff.
And I guess I'm sort of leading into my next question, which is, that streetscape drawing that I keep referencing in, it really does appear to be a primary structure from Pell Street, just to my eye, with no, I guess, heights or other documentation to prove that it's not. Just to it has a similar relationship to Pell Street in plan as the other primary structures along the street, and it is maybe it's not taller, but it does sit up higher, so it does appear to be taller. It steps in the same way the other primary structures along Pell Street step. So I guess my question to you is, have you considered or would you be amenable to a 1.5 story structure that, respects the height of the other primary structures, or the most adjacent one especially, just to sort of respect the primary accessory structure relationship?
So relative to the primary, we are shorter by a story in the back, but because of the way the street is, we would almost have to be even less than 1.5 stories to have that look.
Right.
So that's why, and per certain building guidelines, we can build the size that we proposing. The Raleigh ADU allows for that. So we actually, the client initially got plans from a pre-approved, there's like 8 Raleigh pre-approved ADUs. He used one of them, and we, first of all, changed the height. We lowered it from what it was, and we changed the aesthetic of it because we wanted to work within the Oakwood neighborhood. The alternative of like maybe, turning it 90 degrees, we didn't want to do that because that would, of course, clearly say like, yes, that means it's an ADU to the main house. But if we turned it, you're now providing a wall pretty much along Pell Street. And we think that's not a positive look. Now it just looks like, houses marching along Pell Street. But yeah, if we were to lower it to a story and a half, and that's something the client will have to discuss with, it would actually be, it's already a small building, so that second floor is, the extra bedroom. Now it's going to feel a lot smaller. And architecturally, just visually, it's going to look like stumpier almost. So that was our concern, is just visually, is it going to look disproportionate?
And when you say the primary structure is 3 stories, do you mean that in relation to the grade of the overall lot, it appears to be 3 stories, or it actually has 3 stories in it?
Yeah, it's so if you see the back right now where you're seeing a little bit, that's like the bottom grade level. Then there's like a deck, and that's the main level, and then there's another floor above that from the back. So it's like
But
2.5 stories.
But
Yeah,
from the
back.
primary street, it's 2 stories?
2 stories, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions.
I have a couple.
Okay.
Melissa, did you want to go? Or?
You'll probably get to mine, so.
Okay. So, yeah, you can tell this is a very intriguing project, so appreciate you answering all of our questions. Just a couple of housekeeping items, just looking through the application. So just to tag on to what Jordan's mentioning, that I do think the evidence of heights, and you've got to, I know you said you borrowed from the next property over to get that street elevation. It's a very helpful diagram. I mean, I think even if there was, we're not splitting hairs over an inch, but just to get it like what you believe close to the heights, I think that would be helpful representation for us to see. That's not a question, that's just a statement. The couple of questions I had it looks like everything's represented as 2/2 windows in the design, but I think the original house, and that's on the original house in your model that's shown, but it looks like just from the photos that it's mostly 6/6, and that's what the staff report says. Would you be agreeable to rethinking? Or is the intent to maintain the 2/2, or I could see a reason for contrasting. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Because it is a secondary structure, so we felt like 2/2, just based on seeing other 2/2 is common in Oakwood. Yes, the primary structure has a different grid pattern, but the windows are also a little smaller. Our windows are taller, and just to not make it look exactly like the primary structure, just a little differentiation as well. That was some of the thoughts. If that becomes a sticking point, we can discuss maybe altering.
Okay, that's a reasonable answer. And then tell us a little bit on the east side, which would be the rear of the property, the section of fence that's 8 feet. You probably saw the staff comment about the 6 foot high being more typical. And I'm sorry if you already you went through a bunch of responses and I may have missed it, but what are your thoughts on the 8 foot fence in the rear yard?
So currently, the house that is behind, it's interesting to say, behind the proposed ADU, which would be the 520, am I saying the number right? 522 North Person.
Yeah.
That one has an 8 foot fence. So we were just going to continue it a little bit around the corner. So yes, we can alter to 6, but we were trying to stay within what's already there. And as you notice, we're not going all the way through with it. It's just partially kind of providing screening for our 306 neighbor.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chair, I don't think I have any other questions, but just a friendly reminder to make sure we have public comment at some point.
I will remember. Thank you. It's coming next. Okay. Melissa, did you have a question?
I have one question for staff. The width of this proposed driveway, is that something that is commonly found in this district?
It is not. There have been a very small number of examples. The majority of those are a single width driveway from the street with a secondary parking pad off to the side, but full 2-width driveways are uncommon.
And that would require an alteration to the curb cut, is that correct?
Yes, but currently the curb cut is partially obstructed by the deck. So we're just suggesting, I believe 4 feet is it additional, or you have it more direct?
Yeah, it's a slight shift so that the curb cut could be utilized. And then we are proposing to widen it out to the maximum 18 feet allowed by code. And I will just real quickly explain some of the thought of the layout here. With the topography, there's a lot of consideration about water and how that affects neighbors or the current pattern of water. And this parking area is elevated by a small garden wall to ensure that we're able to move the water in the right direction. If we were to do 2 separate pull-offs, the challenge would be getting those 2 separate curb cuts. And we also don't want that on the lower part of the site to avoid just additional runoff. So that was some of the thought of why we would kind of double that up there.
And one more kind of to add to that, also, we are widening it, but not by so much that it's going to take away a lot of street parking. We were trying to be conscientious that they're not street parking if they can fit both vehicles on that back rear driveway.
All right, thank you. Any more questions? All right, hearing none, we'll now hear from anyone from the public who'd like to speak on the case for or against. Yes. And yes, for sure. Thank you. Come on up. If you haven't signed in, go ahead and do that. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Chris Mackey, and I live at 308 Pell Street, which is an adjacent property to this particular property. And so first of all, I just want to say a couple of things.
Before you begin, I need to swear you in.
No swear me in?
All good. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So first of all, Pell Street is the best street in Oakwood. I just wanted to get that on the record. And then secondly, I did want to say to the folks who are here representing the property owners, we are thankful for your thoughtfulness about the way that this property will impact Pell Street and its look to Pell Street, because that's really very important to us as property owners on the street. Because as you can see, the current property is not very well taken care of, and it represents a great deal of the real estate on Pell Street. That fence is falling down. I'm frequently out there nailing it up because it is about to fall down. So anything that we can do to improve the look of that property is much appreciated, but we do have a lot of questions. It looks to us like a primary residence is being built on Pell Street in the back of that property. And I think if it looks like a primary residence and it quacks like a primary residence, then it's probably a primary residence and not an ADU. So that's one thing that we're very concerned about. The height has us also very concerned. The primary residence is not 3 stories. It, at best, from the street, if somebody looks closely, is 1.5 stories. It's not even a full 2nd story. So if you've ever been in that house, you can't even stand up on that 2nd story. It is also currently not being used as a primary residence in Oakwood. It is split. It's a duplex and being rented out on Airbnb. And the concern is that the ADU unit will be 2 more units that will be rental Airbnb units. And the biggest thing in regards to that is there is not enough parking already on Pell Street. The parking area on Person Street and the parking area on Pell Street are C stickers. So the folks who are staying in that property don't have access to park on the street during the week from Monday through Friday, except for 2 hours. And I don't know if you guys thought about that. Putting another curb cut into that property Would also, and just building, there's not enough, I don't know, you all know more about impervious space than we do, but it seems like we already have a water issue on Pell Street. And if you look at this very picture that's up on your screen right here, you can see this sewer, the sewer line right there, right behind that car, kind of in the middle there. That is already an out. Water flows out of that particular sewer grate, doesn't flow in because it comes from the townhouses that were built at the top of Person Street that are facing Pell Street, basically. So all the water that's coming from those properties is funneled and comes down Pell Street. So any more water put on Pell Street would be of great concern to us. We already have, it already washes the trash cans down from this particular property because this property owner never puts his trash cans in. I put his trash cans in so they don't wash down into our cars because we're all parking on Pell Street. There's not very many driveways on Pell Street currently. There's not very many curb cuts on Pell Street currently. And so we need on-street parking, and with the rental situation at the top of the street, they're already taking up half of Pell Street with rental parking, which doesn't give us anywhere to park on Pell Street. And I don't know if anybody has addressed that or has thought about why that might be important about the continued development of downtown. If we're going to continue to put units in and the property owners can use them in any way that their property in any way that they want to. I'm not griping because it's an Airbnb. I'm just griping because nobody comes and takes care of that property. It's just left up to us on Pell Street to take care of it. And it doesn't fit in with the historic architecture as far as I can see in the design. It seems to be too tall. If it's 3 stories tall, it is a lot taller than the primary structure and doesn't fit in with any of the rest of the historic designs in our neighborhood. The materials that are being used for the patio don't seem to be congruent with anything, but I couldn't really tell from what's in the staff notes here. And obviously that 8-foot property privacy fence is tall, but at least it would keep, our houses on Pell Street, as you can see, are very close to one another. This property would back right up to 306 Pell Street. And I know that she's been working with you guys closely because she's obviously very concerned about anything being built so close to her property. But anything that's going to be that tall is going to look directly into the property next door. And so if I haven't said enough, I just want to see if there's anybody else from Pell Street that had anything else to say about it. But I would urge that you reject this request until you can get more information or until they can solve some of the parking issues and some of the other questions that have already been raised about height.
Thank you. And
I'm Heidi Walters. I'm sorry, I have a cold. I also live at 308 Pell Street, and I'm very concerned about this property.
Oh, let me swear you in before you begin.
Okay, swear me in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole and truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, proceed.
As Ms. Mackey said, the parking is a huge problem. There may be only 2 units that are rental right now, but they come with 4 or 5 cars. So parking is a problem, as well as, you know, I try not to do opinions here, but I agree with the house is, I would not call, I've been inside the house, and the bottom was used for paper making. It's not a basement. Ground floor, it's a basement. It's more of a basement. So anyway, there's a lot to be done to this property. I'm a little concerned also about the 2 parking spaces that are allotted in there. Again, is that really going to make a big difference with other parking, and then also with the drainage? Because we do have a river on Pell many, many times a year. So.
Yeah, and sorry, I'll just add one more thing. Pell Street is a very narrow one-way alley street that you probably can't tell from here, but it is a one-way street, and everybody has to park exactly right so that cars can get up and down, or can get down the rest of Pell Street. And frequently, the cars that park at this particular house, because it's a rental, don't realize how close they have to park to the street, and they block Pell Street. And more than once, we have had to call the police because the top of Pell Street is just blocked by renters. So I would urge you to take that into consideration as you're considering allowing more residents on Pell Street.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. At this time, I'll offer the applicant the opportunity to respond to any of these comments.
I want to say thank you for coming and talking because it's important. Alec has been trying to make this addition of an ADU.
Oh, sorry, can I ask you to
Yes,
lean closer to
sorry.
the mic?
The client has been trying to make this ADU as appealing to neighbors as possible. So this is why we actually did the parking space on the lot. We are widening the curb cut, but not so much more than what it is there. We're adding a couple of feet, literally so that we could get 2 cars off the street, but it's not so wide that it's going to be wider than where you have that current marker for the street parking is pretty much up to where we're widening. So it was to alleviate some of that parking issue. In terms of stormwater runoff, we actually engaged the landscape architect to help a lot with that. That was a very important aspect of the landscape design, and we've tried to kind of negotiate that issue as much as we could with doing stuff on site that would help run the water directly into maybe cisterns, things like that, so that it will not cause issues, because we understand that you guys are getting all that runoff coming. So we've kind of tried to address that in the landscaping features, and I don't know if, Emily, if you have any.
I think just to note and clarify, the plan that was put together shows a planting plan and the possibility of the Raleigh grant funding for rainwater solutions. It's up to the grant funding and so that's not a obligation of this project unless that kind of works itself out. We have met with city staff and they're excited about the opportunity to work with Alec and Kirsten on this. So we know that the plan we drew is amenable and could work, but that needs to go through that whole process. And so I just want to make sure everybody's clear it's something we have to continue to work through and to design. However, the thought was made about how do we move water, and the project stays under the maximum allowed impervious by right. So we were really careful to make sure that everywhere we could add rain gardens or cisterns to help slow that, we are working towards that as best we can.
And I will say that while interesting, also issues of runoff and street parking are not really the purview of this committee, but do appreciate the comments, and it is, of course, a concern of the public. So thank you for that. With that, are there any additional folks from the public or any questions? Hearing none, I'll bring deliberations to the table.
I'll start with just a question for staff. And the application includes some snips, some screenshots of Sanborn maps. It does look like there is a parcel on this street that used to have 2 primary dwellings on a single parcel. It looks like, doing a little homework, it looks like it's eventually been subdivided, but I'm bringing that up. I just want to make sure that that was the way you saw that as well. It looks like 324 and 326 used to be on, they're not a duplex, but there were 2 primary dwellings on a single parcel.
Agreed, yes.
Okay.
It does appear that way in the 1914 Sanborn.
Okay, and across the street from that, it looks like, maybe there's even 3 from that Sanborn. With 315, 317, and then maybe 525 Bloodworth. Sorry to make you dig through. I'm looking
Across
at
Bloodworth?
I'm sorry, across Pell. 315 and 317.
Which page is that?
Page 9 or page 7 of the application.
Oh, okay. It's difficult to tell. It definitely looks like that area has been pasted over, as they did with Sanborn's. So I do not know if we can rely on that as a accurate portrayal of property lines at the time.
Okay, understood. So I guess my comment for colleagues up here is just that my take is that there's likely precedent for multiple primary dwellings. I was really struggling with whether or not, I think the conversation for us is about multiple primary dwellings on a single parcel versus would we think differently if this ADU was a garage, which I think many of the examples that we see where you can see it from the street, where it kind of, the accessory structure fronts a side street, you can see a garage door, and where you can't see the accessory structure because it's, say, behind the primary structure, that's when you start to have more of a cottage or what's a residence and less garage-like. And so I think, it's challenging here because it's neither of those exact conditions, but I want to be respectful of, the opinion about height, but when I see that kind of stair-stepping diagram, there's so much topography change. To me, it doesn't look that overwhelmingly tall. I feel like it's relatively compatible. It's a slightly different form because it's presenting itself as a two-story, though if you look at the dimensioned elevation drawings, it's a very low second story. I'm pointing that out because that full Pell Street elevation shows mostly, kind of one story with the gable end facing the street, like this accessory structure is facing the gable end is facing the street, but it's above what appears to be 2 stories. Elsewhere, it's above 1 story, but it's typically a taller or wider structure. So the roof itself on the other neighboring houses is taller. So I'm just saying all that because I'm trying to reconcile the feedback about height, but I think overall the scale is does not seem that off. I think there's some evidence we could be provided, like heights, whether it's a survey shot by the architect or, dimensions just added to this drawing so we could compare it. I know in the past we found those elevations, and I'm referring to sorry, I had it right up, but just for the record, it's page 14 is what it's noted on the application, but it's page 15 of the combined PDF. I just think that's pretty compelling drawing. One other comment I'll just say, just to get it all out there, I think I'm not convinced that the 2/2 is just being done to distinguish it, but it seemed like the applicant might be willing to work through that. To me, the change of the window pattern suggests a different time, but I think if you were going to be more agnostic to time, maybe like a 1/1 might be, more agnostic to current time, or 6/6, like the primary structure. So anyway, those are just my thoughts on it. I think my instinct is it can get there. It might not be there today, but when I first read the brief, I had one feeling, and then when I saw the illustrations, I started to, think differently. And I'm trying to block out things about, how the property is being maintained, because that's unfortunately not our purview. I'm sympathetic to the neighbors who have dealt with that. I understand those concerns, but yeah, so.
Just echoing on your comments about the window, I do think all of the provided ADU design inspiration was based on other primary structures, not on accessory structures to primary buildings. And so I do think, not to dictate design, but I do think that it would be more congruous if this structure did act or appear as an accessory to the primary structure. And I don't mean that in terms of height. I mean that in terms of materiality, proportion, and the elements that you see on the primary structure and how those elements might appear, in a different way, differential on the accessory structure, and not it being, right now it's totally divorced from the primary structure, according to the imagery. And I just don't see evidence of that anywhere else in the district, but I do see evidence of accessory structures that are similar to the one you designed, but are more closely aligned with the primary structure on the same lot. Oh, sorry, and one more comment would just be about the fence. And it looked like in the photo that the 8-foot fence was 6 foot of solid fence with 2 feet of lattice above, which I think you would probably be amenable to updating that, but that would be my only comment on the fence.
Yeah. I guess if you consider the staff comment about multiple primary structures on the same parcel to be, I guess, incorrect or misinterpreted maybe, then I have much less of this is a much easier square to circle, I guess, in a way. But, as it stands right now, when I look at this, I do not see an accessory structure. I see a primary structure behind a slightly larger primary structure. Its orientation to the street, as well as its neighboring structures and its overall proportion. I think the other ADU on, I guess the address is 523 North Bloodworth, but it sort of on Pell Street, is illustrative to me of the sort of relationship that an ADU normally would have with a primary structure. And I get that the grade along Pell Street is working with that one and is working against this one. But, it's almost twice as far back from Pell Street. It just has a much more, I guess, deferential is the word that I would use, relationship to the other primary structures around it, as well as the one that it shares a parcel with that the proposed project just does not have. But all that being said, compositionally, I find it fairly congruous, with the streetscape. I find the multiple primary structures I guess theory to be difficult to wrap my head around in the context of this project or really any other project in Oakwood or really anywhere in Raleigh. But yeah, I'm listening, I guess. If I don't think that the evidence that I've been presented with here, I don't find this to be congruous with an accessory structure based on the guidelines, specifically 1.6.5. I think we've talked about the windows, the 2/2, sort of the proportion of it. The height of it's been talked about. I also have concerns about its relationship to the street, Pell Street, which is, I guess, not its primary street, but I think a lot of those kind of fly in the face of 1.6.5, 1.6.6, 1.6.7. And yeah, I'm just having trouble with that.
I would say, Trey, do you have anything? You can come after me. Jordan, I would say I agree with you. I do think that while there may be evidence of double primary structures on a lot in here, what we're looking at in the application is an accessory structure, and per our current guidelines and its application being shown such, we have to hold it to that standard. I will say it's a growing pain, I think, of the guidelines and the condition of our overlay districts in our city that we don't have as much fodder, I think, as we should to deal with ADUs. It's a growing thing that is happening across our city, and we want to be able to approach it in a way that is in line with how development moves. But currently, we have to hold them to the garage standard because it is not a principal structure. It is a accessory structure. And I agree with you, Jordan, that per 1.6, several of them, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, I don't believe that the application we have currently would be considered congruous for an accessory structure. I think it's citing on its lot, it's conditioned for Pell Street, even down to sort of a gateway entryway onto that has a very strong linear access to a front door that we wouldn't normally see in an accessory style structure. Its relationship to its primary structure doesn't feel deferential to me. And its height as well. I do think that it can get there as well, but I think currently its presence on the site and those relationships are incongruous. So I think that some more evidence in regards to its relationship to other historic garages in the neighborhood, creating more relationship with congruity, both in size and material in relationship to the primary house would be the kind of evidence that we would want to see to feel like the structure was properly fitting within those guidelines.
So, question for my colleagues up here. I mean, if the owner, I'm not leading the owner to do this, but if the owner just elected to subdivide the lot, create a new lot, and then put the same design there, assuming it met the setbacks, would we then feel differently?
As a primary structure, I think it's an entirely different case. And
okay.
Hypothetically, maybe.
I would probably discourage discussion of a case not currently on the table. But I think that what we have here as an ADU is already moving towards congruity on its own within our guidelines. It's just out of spec in terms of its relationship, and I think really its size on the lot in terms of, and if we were provided evidence that really supported it as is, or with small adjustments that would get it within spec with a few other pieces of evidence like it, I think that that's really what would make this application feel strong without having to make it into a new case. So I think if, with that, I would feel like if the applicant felt like they could make some adjustments like that to respond to our comments, that I would hope we could move towards deferral.
I would appreciate if we can do the deferral, because we can just try to address some of the things you said today and maybe talk to the client about possibilities of doing something that would be more congruent to what you're talking about. So deferral would be preferred.
Just one last question for staff before you make any motion. There were some comments about some of the some of the patio paving materials, and looks like there's like a unitized masonry retaining wall. And my question is really about the unitized CMU that's being used. Has something like that similarly been approved in the district?
I cannot say for certainty that something like that has been approved in Oakwood. I do believe we've seen it in other districts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do not recall if we've seen something quite like that in Oakwood.
I would just add to my list of comments that I think having some evidence supporting that material, again, it's, there are other previously approved alternate materials, but there's just so many of those types of materials that we would want to make sure that it's also compatible.
Mm-hmm. I have an additional question just for housekeeping. It might be a council question. For the health and removal and testimony on health of the trees, Melissa mentioned an arborist. We can accept the landscape architect as expert witness regarding health of trees, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I do think that we would want probably in the next phase, some more direct evidence would be helpful in regards to health of trees, just so we can feel really good about that decision. Okay. Anything else? All right. I think we're ready to make a motion.
Before you make a motion, perhaps discuss with the applicants. I do believe that you would want to have this information included in a staff report. The February meeting deadline is next Friday.
Yes.
Is that possible?
Is it possible to make it for the March?
Yes. So,
based on the comments they've been making, I feel like we need
yeah, so the next, after February 26th, the next option is March 26th.
that would be preferred.
So that is the preferred date, if you didn't hear that.
Sounds great, March. It's the trend. All right. So hearing that, I move that based on the evidence presented with the application, the staff report, as well as testimony provided during the evidentiary hearing, that we move to defer the application to our March meeting. Can I get a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hearing that is unanimous, the motion passes to defer. And I think with that, we can move to the next. Thank you very much. All right. Moving right along. We have COA 0164 2025 911 West South Street. And recognize staff for their presentation.
All right. This is COA 164 2025 for 911 West South Street in the Boylan Heights Historic District. The request is to remove 2 trees and plant 1 replacement street tree. These are photos of the existing primary structure, and one of the trees proposed for removal due to proximity to that structure. Rear views and the tree in the rear yard proposed for removal, as well as one for retention in this area. And then just general views back toward the street. Alleyway coverage. The other side of the house back toward the street. And staff concerns are that 1-for-1 replacement trees are not being proposed. The one that is proposed to be planted is a street tree, which can't be guaranteed or even regulated through this COA process. And also replacement tree specifications were not provided, but typically a replacement tree would be of a similar species and canopy coverage. And I believe the property owner is here to speak as well.
The applicant will come up. If you haven't signed up, go ahead and do so.
Just scroll on this mouse if there's any picture you want.
Okay. Hello, my name is Scott Runyon. I live at 911 West South Street in Boylan Heights.
All right. I'll go ahead and swear you in. Do you affirm that testimony? Sorry, I'm still learning it. It's off my page. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Perfect, thank you.
So not really anything prepared. Just essentially, so we have a tree in our backyard that the pine tree on, you see this picture, it's on the right. Obviously, at some point prior to our purchasing the property, it was struck by lightning, probably 10, 15 years ago. Hadn't thought much of it, but when we started noticing animals are starting to live inside the base of the tree because there's the gashes in it have gotten worse and worse over time. So when we had a couple arborists come out and look at it, and they basically confirmed that yes, the bottom half of the tree is dead, but the top half is still growing. So eventually it's going to obviously become top heavy and the base is not going to support it. It's just going to, it's going to come down one way or another. We would prefer to do that in a controlled manner rather than use our neighbor's house as a stopping point, especially with the storms as big as and such. And as for the tree in the front, which is a willow oak hybrid, I was told. The issue with that is, she didn't really, if she really got it or not, because it is so close to our porch, and it's gotten closer since I used to be able to walk between the corner of that porch and that tree comfortably, and I notice now I'm not a small person, but I don't fit in there any longer, and it's starting to lift the corner of our porch up, which we just had redone 2 years ago, the planking. And now it's starting to pop pieces of the planking together because it's getting pressure. And I was like, why is that? So we looked at it. It's like, oh, it's because the one end's being slowly elevated. So eventually it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and it's going to cause serious problems as the tree grows because their house obviously is not shrinking. So we want to replace that tree, and I was told that like we could have the city, if we put a request in for a city tree, they would relocate that tree or replace it with a tree in a better location farther out towards the street in the right of way, which we'd be more than happy with. So we didn't have, and I didn't discuss, obviously I should have around as far as what species that would be. I didn't know if we had options around that or not with this. I don't know the city tree process specifically. So, and as far as replacing tree in the back, it's hard to see here, but our back we call the cave because the canopy is so thick. You can't, if you look at it from Google Maps, which I included in you can't even see our house because between those two trees. And that pine tree contributes nothing to that canopy because it basically just grew up. I mean, it was not planted there, obviously, it just grew there by accident. And it's just grown up between the leaves or the branches of the oak tree that we're keeping. And it just pokes out the top where you can get just enough sun to get it live. So taking that tree out doesn't open up any sun. And nothing grows in our backyard. Like I can't even hardly grow grass in the backyard. Any spot in our yard basically gets about 20 minutes of sunlight a day in spring and summer. Looks great now. But so that's basically the crux of it.
All right. Are any members of the public here to speak on this case? All right. Hearing none, I will close the evidentiary hearing or I'll ask committee members, are there any questions for our applicant?
Yeah, just to be clear, where the pine in your rear yard is proposed to be removed, the oak next to it would remain, right?
Yes, and actually one of the arborists that we had to come look at it actually said that tree will really benefit by taking that pine tree out because it's like you can hear it rubbing at night, and he's like, that's not good. And obviously, if it falls on its own, it might do some significant damage to that tree. So he's like, actually, that tree will really flourish if you get rid of its unfriendly neighbor. And he said, he made a point, like, don't get the stump ground so you don't damage that oak tree's roots. So we said, absolutely. He's like, leave it for the woodpeckers.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions from the committee? All right. Hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing and bring the matter to the table for discussion.
It's too bad the tree in the front yard has matured so much, being so close to the house. I mean, it's scary how close it is. And I had not actually noticed like the way the porch appears to be bowing in the photo. I think it's bowing more now that you've told me that it's being lifted up from the corner.
Come back in here.
I might have been influenced by that, but there's really not a whole lot of property area in the front yard for another replacement tree. I mean, I have no issues with the rear. The rear one, I think, is just sort of open and closed because it was, again, that pine was too close to, another healthy shade tree. So I would personally be okay with not planting a replacement tree because I don't see a great amount of area other than, and I think there is an understory that you're not able to see in this photo, but also there could be street trees. The site or the satellite imagery is pretty compelling that the canopy is dense, and I just don't know where the replacement could go where it doesn't create this issue again in 30, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a shame to lose the willow oak there in the front. I don't know what a willow oak hybrid is, but how could we? I guess that's not really our purview. I mean, it would be great if a tree could go in the front, even if that is by the city in the right of way, and that's staff or Pat chime in here and tell me if I can talk about that at all. It sounds like, based on
It's been offered.
right, it's based on the applicant's testimony, it sounds like that is something that you have to apply for. Maybe
we
you
would
get
move that tree out if we could. Obviously, that's not possible.
Right. But in order to get
choosing between a tree and our house right now, so I'm like, we don't
Right.
want to lose a tree.
In terms of trying to determine a species, I think all the street trees the city plants are required to be understory, so it would not be like for like replacement.
Okay.
Though the specific species we couldn't determine through this hearing.
Right. Where I was sort of going with that for my fellow committee members is a condition for the applicant to go forward with that process contingent, this COA approval being contingent on that application.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I'm looking at you, Pat.
Do we have the applicant's consent?
If you can explain what that means exactly.
So,
Down like I'm.
so what I'm proposing here is that this COA's ultimate approval and completion be contingent on you applying for the city to plant a new street tree in front of your house.
Sure, if I can go ahead and, because I don't know how long that process takes, obviously, and as long as it's not contingent upon their decision, meaning, yes, I'm all for that, that's what we said it, but they can say, no, we're not doing that. I'm like, well, that's
right.
You gonna pay for
That's
the
why I
house.
said the application. just you
the process is
have
off.
to, you have to apply for it.
And can we go ahead and remove the tree in the back, because that's the one that's scary. That's the scary one, because it's every time the wind blows really hard, I'm like, not today.
That would be included in any approval, yes.
Right.
Like we split it up or something.
Right. All of the conditions of the COA would have to be complete before. Well, I guess we're not issuing a blue placard in this case, but
And the applicant or the application does say plant one street tree as the nature of the work. So I feel like that's already included.
However it happens.
right. Well, I'm just, staff's concern is that is not part of our purview as COA. We can't make the city do that as part of our process.
Right. Do you have jurisdiction over that? No, but you have a voluntary condition, and so long as it's pursued diligently, that's certainly fine.
Does anybody else have any?
I think if the rest of the committee feels good about that, that sounds good to me.
Can I ask a question really fast?
Sure.
I live
Oh,
in-
sure.
Do I need to get sworn in to ask a
Yes,
question?
you do
Sorry.
need to get sworn in. Oh, one second. We would need to reopen the evidentiary hearing, correct? Yep. All right. I'll go ahead and reopen the evidentiary hearing and swear you in. Before I do, would you like to state your name and your relationship with the case?
Relationship. So Kim Mercer, I live at 911 West South Street. So when you talk
Let me swear
about,
you in real fast.
oh, sorry.
Sorry. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
So when you were talking about putting the COA as contingent to being able to start that process with the city, and he made the reference of as long as we could go and start doing something with the tree in the back, we need to be able to do them at the same time for financial reasons. And so I don't know if that's going to make it an issue.
When you say them at the same time, you mean both trees?
Yeah.
Got it.
It's my understanding that the request process is pretty easy.
Okay.
You can submit it online. We can send you the link. It's something you should be able to accomplish pretty quickly.
Okay. I just didn't, it's not feasible to cut them down at two separate times. Okay. Thank you.
But, and
how do we, what qualify? Oh, this is going to be a lot less complicated compared to everybody else. What is the condition, like when do we meet, if we pursue the process, at what point have we met the condition as young man?
As soon as you submit that request for a street tree, I think is what they're saying is acceptable.
Yeah, you could provide evidence to us that you've submitted the application, and that would satisfy the condition. And the exact wording of that condition, the committee will read into the record when they make their motion, but that's how you can satisfy.
That's what I was getting at. Okay, that's.
And then how long do we have to work with a tree removal service? Like, how long does that last for us?
Your approval, or once you do the final approval?
Major work COA approvals are now good for a year.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. Perfect.
And then you'd have to come back before us if you didn't do it.
It's like, yeah, I want it done before hurricane season.
I'm a little uncomfortable with that being a preclusion to them cutting down the trees, just because, is that what we're saying? Okay, so they could go ahead and they would not need to apply for
They
a
would not
street
be
tree.
able to move forward with any other work until they have the COA placard, which if there is a condition tied to issuing that placard, they would need to satisfy first. So it sounds like it could be done fairly quickly, but they couldn't move forward with the tree removal tomorrow. They would need the placard first.
Okay.
Does that mean after they do the application and they let us know that it comes back to us February 26th? Like if they got it in before, what is it, January 30th, it comes back to us?
No. So based on the decisions made at the meeting tonight, those will become final when you all approve your minutes from this meeting at next month's February meeting. And if they've already satisfied any conditions that were tied to approval at that time, the next day we issue the placard and they can move forward.
Okay. Did that make sense?
It did.
Okay.
I mean, I know what I have to do next. I think I've got the easy part.
All right. So if we're feeling good about that,
You don't need it doesn't seem like you need my consent for it, but I just think it's unnecessarily cumbersome to the applicant, but it seems like they're agreeable to it, so let's proceed.
And maybe I'm misunderstanding because now he's got me worried. So basically, I go in next week or whenever, as soon as possible, submit my city tree application, show that when it's been accepted or been confirmed that it's submitted, send it back to you. You say, yes, your condition was sent, your placard will be available on such and such a date. Then you can shoot forward. That seems.
That's what I had in mind.
That was going to be the process to begin with.
That's what I had in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I was surprised I didn't have to do that to begin, to be honest.
Can I ask, does anyone besides Jordan feel the need to tack this on as a condition?
I guess I asked staff because I don't know it verbatim. What does it say? Is the one-to-one a requirement or a strong suggestion?
If they were providing a one-to-one replacement tree for each tree they removed, in addition to showing that they're dead, diseased, or dangerous, or otherwise damaging historic resources, which they've provided for both of these trees already, it would be a minor work and you wouldn't hear the case.
Okay.
I think the location is a bit of a concern with the one-to-one replacement in the front. if they were amenable to doing a one-to-one replacement, and the only way to do it is through a right-of-way street tree, to me, it feels like this might be a necessary part of ensuring it happens.
Understanding that it won't be in a tree of similar caliber or scale or size overall, it's sort of, I think the alternative, perhaps, because ultimately we don't control that process. They may decide to not plant a tree there. The city, that's a different, that's their bag. But I think consider the alternative, which is that we're simply removing 2 trees and that is fine, which is not, I think, a good precedent to set. Or, I understand there are some extenuating circumstances here. Each case is unique, but, simply asking to remove 2 trees and we say yes does not feel that it's in the spirit of what we do here.
Yeah. I guess I'm just hung up on the very first page of the applicant. It says remove 2 trees, plant 1 replacement street tree. I feel like that doesn't need to be conditioned.
Well, they can't plant the street tree because it's not on their property. They can't do it. They can't plant a street tree.
We did put kind of 1 foot on both sides of this in the staff report and work request by allowing that to be a part of the description, but it's technically not regulated through the COA process.
Okay.
It's not on their property, so they could plant it, but probably the city would tell them to take it down.
Yeah, because when I looked at the property map and saw how shockingly far up in our yard the right of way actually goes. I'm like, oh, anything inside that would basically be on top of the porch again.
And to be clear, I think if the applicant puts forth this application for City of Raleigh and they don't do it, that our COA still stands as is.
Correct. They will still be removing the 2 trees they want to remove, and there will be no additional burden.
So in that case,
on
it's
the
not a
owner.
one-to-one replacement, which is a tough site to put a one-to-one replacement in this front yard. I think we can acknowledge that, but I do think that per our guidelines, we would want to see a front of the house tree present.
Okay.
All right.
Close the evidentiary hearing.
All right. I'd like to close this evidentiary hearing. And we'll bring it back to the table. Are there any further table discussions we need to have? All right.
No, it's potato, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you can vote against it when it's time.
Yeah. Allow me to
allowed.
vote, please.
Okay. I move that based on the evidence presented in the evidentiary hearing, provided in the staff report, comments from the public, that the application be approved with the following condition, that the applicant furnish staff with a receipt or record of some type affirming the application for the planting of a street tree in front of the property prior to the issuance of a placard.
All right. Motion's been made.
Entertain any friendly amendments on this motion.
Any amendments? Yes, Pat?
Yeah, may I contribute?
Of course.
And I'll suggest language that perhaps staff can evaluate for enforceability. Okay, so.
Accepted.
Oh, thank you. And without changing the substance. So something along these lines, that the applicant shall provide the Department of Planning and Development with documentary evidence of the submission of and the receipt of a complete, appropriate, and diligent street tree application prior to, and then your language.
Accepted.
I don't know if this further complicates things, but the application will be a tree impact permit, if you want to just, that is what it is
I was wondering
called.
what the official name was.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
substitute street tree application with that.
Accepted.
All right. Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Committee's written decision will be adopted with the minutes of this meeting at next month's COA, and applicant Enterprise will receive written notice following the adoption of the decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Do we need a recess or do we want to finish? We got one more.
Up to the chair. The chair can decide if you need a recess.
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute recess. Sorry. 2, 1. Hearing is now back in order, and we're ready to see our last case of the night, which is COA 0174 2025 315 Oakwood Avenue. I will recognize staff for their presentation.
This is case COA 174, 2025 for 315 Oakwood Avenue in the Oakwood Historic District. The request is to construct a rear accessory structure and alter rear fencing. I'll note the rear fencing component is included because there are fence lengths taller than 42 inches in height, and this application was submitted prior to the adoption of our text change that allowed for that to be reviewed as a minor work. And you can see in this map, there's an interesting relationship between this property and the adjacent property to the east. So if you have questions when you're looking at site photos about orientation and property lines, we can try to help clarify that. This is the subject property as viewed from Oakwood Avenue. And moving to the rear, overall, this is a portion of the fencing running through the center of the rear yard that's proposed for alteration. And looking back toward the rear lot line from the back of the house. The neighboring property to the east and to the west. And a more detailed shot of that rearmost section of the yard. Again, to the west and the east. So the two structures shown here are not actually a part of the subject property. That's on the neighboring lot. Summary of staff concerns. Some of the proposed materials may not have a smooth painted finish. It wasn't specified. And some items typically included for conditions haven't been provided, such as window and door sections.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to call the applicant for their presentation and any additional information.
Hello. So my name's John O'Grady. I own and live at 315 Oakwood Avenue.
Perfect. Before you provide your testimony, I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the committee and staff for their time helping me put this application together, and also transparency in the process as well. We previously owned another historic house in another great American city, and the process there for this sort of work was absolutely not transparent. So this has been great. I'd also like to address the staff concerns that came up. I, first of all, brought some copies of the section views that were requested. I have 8 copies each of the door and windows of the accessory structure to provide for y'all. And I'm also prepared to solemnly swear that I will use a smooth painted finish on the accessory structure as well.
Do you have any additional comments or information for us?
No, not really. If y'all have questions about the fence, just let me know. It's
Sure.
sort of
I'll
confusing.
give you guys a second to review. Are there any additional questions?
I have just a quick question. On the diagrams included on the existing fence map,
Yes.
it shows all of the brick paving, I like to call it decorative brick paving, and it does not show it on the proposed fence map. Are you proposing to remove all of that brick paving? Is that correct?
Yes, and that was subject of another COA application for minor work that I put
I
in.
see, minor work,
That's not subject to this, but there was some stormwater issues in the backyard that caused flooding in the basement. So there's been some patio modifications that are underway right now.
I guess it's page 32 of 33 in your package here. What is the pink line that sort of bisects the yard?
That's that existing fence.
Okay.
Can we
Okay.
go back on this?
I think you scroll on the wheel.
Okay. Yeah, so it is very confusing. So this is looking out the back door of the house.
I see.
You see one section of yard here. There's a second section of our property that's behind this,
see.
vegetated fence area.
see.
And that pink line is that fence that cuts across.
So
the
sort of where that bush is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right behind there.
Got
yeah,
it.
correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions? All right. Trey, you good? All right. Hearing none, do we have any members of the public here to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on. At this point, I'll close the evidentiary hearing and bring the matter to the table.
Seems like a reasonable application. No staff concerns. It's a beautiful yard.
It really is.
I'm going
Thank you.
to say I'm envious of that, but I drive by here all the time. Had no idea that was back there. So
Yeah.
No, I didn't have time to come down and come look at it in person, but selfishly, I want to.
yeah.
And knowing more about the minor work paving removal, I think really does help me. That was kind of one of my concerns. I'm like, but it's already approved. We're good. So, yeah, I think for me, I think that the application with that in mind looks pretty good.
I'll move that based on the evidence in the application and the staff report, as well as the testimony provided in the evidentiary hearing that we approve the application subject to the following conditions. One, that all shed materials have a smooth painted finish as promised by the applicant. And I know we received some materials here, but I'll include too that, the applicant work with staff and the following materials and specifications be submitted to and approved by staff prior to issuance of the blue placards, scale dimensions, window section details, and 2B scaled or dimensioned door section details, which we received with the application, but I think still finalizing those details would be appropriate. So,
Sure. So
All right.
just provide via email, I guess.
Well, let's get a second to that first.
Yes, we've got motion second.
So I'd also like some clarification there. So rather than evaluate what's been provided to you tonight, you'd like for staff to review this at a later date and work with the applicant if it cannot be approved by staff?
yes, I see a bunch of cut sheets and I'm not sure of the exact specification. I'm sure they're in here, but
If you look at my application, the specific model is called out there. So what's printed out is provided by the manufacturer. So it's like a whole bunch of different windows, but I have the actual window called out in my application.
Yeah.
So you got to jump back and forth.
yeah, I'm understanding of that, but just in the spirit of saving us all time, I was trying to just make sure they were
Understood. So this is not necessarily that what has been provided tonight is approved, just that you'd like to keep that condition and have us evaluate this and get to the
I'm
satisfied.
trusting that it's aligned, but rather than doing what the applicant just said and being here I might need a few minutes to do that. I'd like to keep the condition.
I understand.
Okay.
All right, with that in mind, do we need to update the? All right, we're good. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. So congratulations. The committee's written decision will be adopted with the minutes of this meeting at next month's COA, and all other parties will be receiving written notice following the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was it. Thank you all for riding along with me.
Awesome job. Yeah, you did
On that first-
amazing. Yeah.
A little rocky, but we'll get smoother as with practice. And that was a rousing set of hearings. So,
You can say the meeting is adjourned.
with that, the meeting is adjourned. You may all leave.